A California killing spree that's...
The Zodiac Killer didn't just murder, he communicated. From 1969 to 1974, local newspapers in San Francisco began receiving...
Now a group of sleuths claims to have solved the case of the infamous Zodiac Killer.
...disturbing handwritten letters. Each one claimed responsibility for murders.
Yeah, get this. They think that he was a man living in Tuolumne County the whole time.
And included chilling details only the killer could know.
And who died just 3 years ago.
These weren't just confessions. They were twisted messages laced with threats, puzzles, and demands. The most infamous was his line, "This is the Zodiac speaking." It became his terrifying signature. What made these letters especially horrifying was how calm and calculated they were. The Zodiac didn't sound panicked or remorseful. He sounded amused, like he was playing a game with the public, with the police, and even with the media. In several letters, he taunted authorities, dared them to catch him, and even threatened to bomb school buses. His language was mocking, cold, inhuman. And yet, despite the clues hidden in these letters, authorities couldn't trace them back to one person. Handwriting experts tried. Codebreakers tried. But the Zodiac remained a shadow, always watching, always writing, always one step ahead. These letters weren't just words, they were weapons. Psychological weapons that kept California gripped in fear for years. And even today, they remain some of the most haunting messages ever sent by a killer who vanished, but never truly left. Ciphers. The Zodiac Killer didn't just write letters. He embedded puzzles inside them. These were ciphers, complex coded messages that seemed to promise a window into his mind. His most famous cipher, the Z340, was sent to the San Francisco Chronicle in November 1969. It baffled experts for over 50 years, until a team of amateur codebreakers finally cracked it in 2020. But the decrypted message offered no identity. Instead, it mocked the idea of being caught. "I hope you are having lots of fun in trying to catch me. I am not afraid of the gas chamber." It was pure ego, proof that the Zodiac saw his crimes as a performance, and himself as the star. Earlier ciphers, like the Z408, were cracked much faster. That one chillingly declared, "I like killing people because it is so much fun." These weren't just riddles. They were confessions wrapped in arrogance. He wanted attention. He wanted fear. And he wanted everyone to know he was smarter than them. The real question is, were the ciphers just games? Or were they keys to something deeper? Clues to who he really was? Because even today, some of his ciphers remain unsolved, hanging like a silent dare across time. And in that silence, the Zodiac still whispers. Targets. The Zodiac Killer didn't strike randomly. He chose his targets with eerie precision. Most of his victims were young couples, often in isolated areas, sitting in cars, enjoying peaceful moments. But those moments turned into horror. From David Faraday and Betty Lou Jensen in 1968, to Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard in 1969, the pattern was chilling surprise attacks, brutal violence, and a message left behind. One victim was shot, another stabbed. Some were killed instantly. Others survived, only to recount the terror in vivid detail. Brian Hartnell, for instance, lived to tell how the killer appeared wearing a black hood with a white cross, circle symbol. Zodiac's signature emblem. It wasn't just murder. It was theater. Carefully staged. Deeply symbolic. And then came the twist. The Zodiac didn't always stick to his pattern. He once shot a cab driver, Paul Stein, in a busy San Francisco neighborhood. That broke his usual method, and proved he could strike anywhere, at any time. His victims weren't just names. They were symbols of control in the Zodiac's twisted game. He chose them not just to kill, but to send a message that no one was safe, that anyone could be next, and that fear. It never left California. Calls. The Zodiac Killer didn't just leave letters behind. He made phone calls too. Right after the Blue Rock Springs Park attack in July 1969, where Darlene Ferrin was killed and Michael Mageau was wounded, a call came into the Valley Joe Police Department. The voice on the line was calm, emotionless. He confessed to the crime, and even mentioned an earlier murder, proving it wasn't a prank. He didn't panic. He didn't run. He walked to a payphone, just a few blocks from the police station, and made that call like it was part of his routine. That one act shook law enforcement. It proved the Zodiac was watching, listening, and even capable of inserting himself into the investigation without getting caught. But what made the calls even more chilling was what they didn't say. There were no real clues. No slip-ups. Just eerie calmness. Some theorists even believe he may have made more calls that were never traced back to him. Silent manipulation. Just enough to stay in control. Every word he spoke into that phone wasn't just communication. It was strategy. A signal that he wasn't hiding in fear. He was hiding in plain sight. Taunts, the Zodiac Killer wasn't just a murderer. He was a master manipulator. He taunted the police, the press, and the public with every move. His letters were laced with sarcasm, mockery, and cruel games. He bragged about how easy it was to kill. He dared authorities to stop him, and he ridiculed their failure to catch him. In one letter, he wrote, "The police shall never catch me, because I have been too clever for them." He referred to his murders as games, and kept score with his infamous symbol, Zodiac to 37, SFPD Zopoint. To him, it wasn't about justice or revenge. It was about winning, dominating, making people afraid, and then feeding off that fear. He even mailed pieces of Paul Stein's bloodied shirt to prove he wasn't bluffing. In another letter, he said he would target school children, threatening to blow up a bus. That threat alone sent waves of panic through California, forcing schools to increase security and police to patrol roads. The Zodiac's taunts weren't just insults. They were psychological warfare. He turned murder into a mind game and made the entire state a pawn in his twisted puzzle. And the most terrifying part, he always seemed to be one step ahead. Suspects over the years, dozens of suspects have been linked to the Zodiac Killer, but none confirmed. The most well-known name is Arthur Leigh Allen. He matched the profile, owned a typewriter like the one used in the letters, and was even identified by a surviving victim. Yet, there was no hard evidence. No DNA match, no fingerprints. Just chilling coincidences. Another name that made headlines was Gary Francis Post. After his death, a group of investigators claimed he was the Zodiac. They pointed to scars on his forehead, cryptic messages in his writing, and links to the ciphers. But again, no conclusive proof. Just theories. Other suspects ranged from former military men to code experts, even journalists who were believed to have gotten too close to the case. But every time police got close, the trail went cold. The Zodiac seemed to vanish without a trace. No more letters. No more murders. Just an endless list of names. And one haunting question, did they ever even look at the real killer? Despite decades of investigation, thousands of tips, and new DNA technology, the Zodiac's true identity remains one of America's greatest criminal mysteries. And the longer it stays unsolved, the more it feels like he planned it that way. Legacy: the Zodiac Killer may have vanished, but his legacy never did. More than 5 decades later, his crimes still haunt America. His case inspired books, films, documentaries, and even fictional villains. The fear he created didn't die. It evolved into a cultural obsession. The symbol he drew, a cross within a circle, is now burned into the minds of true crime followers. His cryptic letters and unsolved ciphers are still studied by amateur sleuths and professional codebreakers. Some believe that new DNA technology might one day unmask him. Others think he's long dead, taking the truth with him. But his impact was far more than just media attention. The Zodiac changed how police investigate serial killers. He showed how fear could be weaponized, not just through violence, but through communication, through control. Even today, whenever a cryptic message appears in a modern case, the Zodiac's shadow is there. His name resurfaces. His tactics are referenced. His voice, though silent for years, still echoes through every unsolved crime that dares to follow his blueprint. Because he didn't just want to be remembered. He wanted to become a myth. And somehow, he succeeded.